This is the Serial Startups Podcast, Show 22. In the previous episode, we wrapped up our business planning mini course episodes. Today, we're going to discuss our evolution into entrepreneurship.
This episode of the Serial Startups Podcast is brought to you by the Business Planning Mini Course.
Are you dreaming about starting your own business, but don't know how to take the first steps? Or maybe you already have a business, but are still struggling to get that comfortable income. A solid business planning process will make your ideas come to life and get you on the road to true profitability, and we can help you achieve it. Head on over to serialstartups.co/business plan now to find out more information and get started. Welcome to the Serial Startups Podcast, where we bring you the real deal when it comes to masterminding a business, juggling personal relationships, and a busy household. We are your hosts and serial entrepreneurs, Tom and Ariana Sylvester, and this is the podcast for people who want to get more out of life. We want to show you how to build multiple streams of income and get on the fast track to being your own boss. Join us as we talk about our ideas, successes, and failures, both in business and in life.
All right, so welcome back to the Serial Startups Podcast. And if you're just joining us, we just finished up our 3-part mini-series around business planning. So if you guys remember, we're actually going to do 3 shows a month around a specific business topic. And then we're going to have one that's really on like lifestyle, mindset, and really all the stuff that goes on behind the business that a lot of people typically don't talk about.
But first, we're going to take you back to some of the fondest and, I guess, funniest memories of when we first met. So I'll start. If you've listened to our intro episode, Tom and I went to the same college, lived down the hall from each other. And some of my fondest memories of Tom are the days where I would go off to class and, I'd have, a couple, four classes and maybe a science lab. And I would come home after soccer practice later, and what do I find but Tom sitting in his dorm room playing Final Fantasy, sitting about, 2 feet from the TV, and he would have a closet full of 2-liter Mountain Dew and bags of Doritos.
All right, so let me just get that straight. So you said one of your fondest memories is me playing Final Fantasy and eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew. Like, that is awesome.
Well,
you're an awesome wife.
Fondest is used loosely. Now it's a fond memory.
I was going to say, the way I remember it was...
Back then I used to get pissed.
Yeah, you had a lot of homework, you had classes all day, and then you'd come back at the end of the day and be like, oh my gosh, that Final Fantasy music.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Yes, I will point out to this day that game is not allowed in this household because it brings back bad memories. But now that I look back, they are fond memories.
Yeah, so that's why I play Call of Duty now.
Yes, I'll be okay with that one. No annoying background music to get stuck in my head. And then also, not many of you may know this about Tom, but he was my little small country town rapper. He used to throw down and he used to dress like one as well.
Oh, yeah.
So one of his favorite clothing companies was South Pole.
I got skills.
And I can't fault the guy because he absolutely loved me, even though I wore sweatpants every single day.
I think it's still wear.
Hey now, I put jeans on some days.
Some days.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely.
At least they're still the same sweatpants.
I was going to say, I think they're actually the same sweatpants from
my
college.
Oswego State soccer sweatpants. Those things are the most comfortable sweatpants ever.
So just throwing it out there, we're coming up on our 10-year college reunion this year, and you still have the same sweatpants, and you wear them all the time.
And sweatshirts. They were a whole outfit.
You still have high school sweatshirts.
Shh.
No, that's dedication. I mean...
Can't really see any of the letters on them. They've all fallen off, but
yeah. I lose a pen after like 2 days, and you've had T-shirts for 15 years.
Yes, I do. I like my stuff.
All right. Well, so for me, fondest memories. This is gonna sound very corny, but the reality is, we went to the same school. We met each other the first day, and right away, people called us the married couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back at that, it was like there was no better time than when we were just kind of like carefree. I met you, we instantly hit it off, and we were best friends.
I knew you forever.
Yeah, we would sit up at night and in the hall just talking about life and things. And there was a thing at our college late night, so at 10 o'clock you could go get pizza and stuff on campus, and we would go and do that. And just thinking everyone in college was like, oh, we're going to go out on the weekend and get drunk. And I mean, like we did, the stuff out there, but there were so many nights where like we would just stay in and we'd play games and, really just enjoy each other. And now that we're married and kids and businesses, like that time is rare, but I look back and like that was just amazing. And I think for anyone out there listening, it's like when you have time to do those things, enjoy it. And then as life goes on, really just make sure you make time for that. And I think that's one of the things that, we're really trying to do all the time now is how do we get some of that time back for us?
Movie nights, game nights. Don't forget to put them on the calendar.
All right, so what are we going to go through today?
Today, we're going to talk about our journey as entrepreneurs, and we're going to kind of split that out for you. We're going to talk about how we personally grew along that journey, and then how our relationship grew along that journey, because, not a lot of people talk about that stuff, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So with that, let's jump into the show, the journey and evolution into entrepreneurs.
All right, so the main topic today, like Ariana said, is really just talking about that journey. And let me tell you, becoming an entrepreneur is definitely a journey, and it's full of craziness, happiness, frustration, depression, and it's really rewarding. But it is a challenge. And when you do it with your spouse, it is so much more difficult. But at the same time, the rewards are also so much greater. So what we're going to do as we go through this is really take you guys back on that journey so that you guys see what it looks like and where the ups and downs were, and then also how we changed personally and then as a relationship. Because like we said before, far too many people, you see the successes that businesses have, you see people talk about their positives, but you don't see all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And to be honest, everyone goes through these things. So, if you're going through them or if you go through them in the future, just know that you're not, weird. People only
You're
talk.
not alone.
Yeah, I mean, people, like if you look on Facebook or Instagram or anything, you're going to get 1% of someone's life, and it's the 1% they want to show you. We're going to show you the other 99% here today.
Yes. So we're going to start off with our personal growth, and we're each going to share, I guess, what we think changed the most about us. And then we'll take you through after college, after marriage, after business, and after kids, some of our own personal growth notes. And then we'll skip over to the relationship stuff after. So I'll start first. I would like to think that my biggest personal growth moment since this whole journey began is that I've learned to embrace change. When we first met in college, I was very OCD about certain things. I wanted everything done the way I wanted it. I like to be in control of things, which some of that has changed, some of it has not. But that's kind of part of my personality, and it was hard for me to separate that. I was an only child, so I was very used to being on my own, doing my own thing, taking care of everything that I needed taken care of. And, I didn't need anyone else to do that.
Yeah, and kind of related to that, it was interesting. So I was one of 3 children. I was the first one. And, you say you were on your own, but you also had, very supportive parents, a very, tight-knit family. So a lot of what you were doing, was also related to your parents and that tight-knit family. For me, I had 2 younger siblings. And, I had a little bit of a tough time kind of going through like high school, and, my parents got divorced, and, it was a challenging time for me. And one of the things I think for me was I became really independent. I mean, I had 3 jobs my senior year of college. I had my own apartment, and I basically started taking care of myself and figuring out like, what are all the things I got to do? So I think it's interesting to see, how your family dynamics, and then also like if you're a single child versus, one of multiples, and just how that kind of affects everything else in your life and how you think about things.
Yeah, well, my parents were very big on independence too, so I think that was a big part of it. Because a lot of people, they talk about the only child syndrome, but I'm definitely one of the rare ones that I didn't really have that issue that a lot of only children have. I was raised to be independent, so it was hard to let other people take the reins sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, even, so you were raised to be independent, but you didn't have independent experiences in some cases, like money.
Correct.
So that was a place where like I had to become independent and understand how to manage finances. So, I think that was a good way for us to kind of help each other.
We complemented each other well, even back then.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of related to that, when I look at it, one of my biggest issues when I came to college was trust. I mean, like I said, I had been through some trying times, and one of the things that I kind of got in my head was, well, I can't trust people, because if I trust someone, they're just going to let me down. So I became very independent, in a different way, but I was always doing everything myself, and I didn't want to open up or let anyone in. So I remember just one of the challenges that I had was, when we would talk about things, or when something would kind of get close or personal, it was very tough for me to be able to let you in and, talk about some of those things, or, because I was so used to doing it myself and not letting other people in, or, to help with that.
Yeah. Well, that was the OCD and control freak in me. I forced it out of you.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the big things here is we both helped each other. We both were kind of extreme in some cases. And I think a lot of what it did was, we still have those tendencies, but I think it pulled us more to center, so they weren't as extreme.
Well, and we know we have those tendencies because we've talked about it. So I make you knock down the wall because I'm just not going to let you put the wall up. And
you were like a wrecking ball.
I'm not going to break out in song, just so y'all know. I could have.
I was gonna say I teed that right up for you.
Not today. So let's talk about after college. I think one of our biggest realizations, well, mine personally, I realized that life looks a lot different on the other side of that degree. You go through high school and you go through college, and everyone's very supportive, and they tell you to do what you want to do. Go to school for something you love to do, and aspire to those dreams of life when you get out of college, and get your dream job. And then when you get out of college, you realize that those dreams might be a little far off. And you kind of have to adjust based on the real world, which I wish someone would have told me, because my zoology degree was not a very practical degree. I loved animals, so I went to school for animals. Then I got out of school, and there are not a whole lot of jobs for a zoology degree. And then on top of that, there's not any really well-paying jobs for that zoology degree. So that was something that I had to kind of come to terms with and realize, okay, well, I'm not going to reach my dream of being a zookeeper and playing with animals all day, every day.
Yeah, well, and I don't think you're saying, like, don't go after your dreams. I think the biggest thing, like, for you that would have helped is someone to kind of walk you through what does that look like, and what's it going to take to get there.
Yes.
Because a lot of times people say, well, go to college for what you love to do. Okay, good advice, but
can I live on what I love to do?
What does it look like afterwards? And if you want to be a zoologist, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've got 3 options in New York. If that doesn't work, you're going to have to move.
Yep.
Is that something you want to do? If not, you probably could have changed your course much sooner, rather than getting all the way through that degree and being like, well, I don't want to move, therefore I'm likely not going to get this job.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think one of the things related to that is, when you're in college, you get student loans, and you don't really
Your
look
parents
too
might
much.
help you out.
Yeah. But you don't really look too much at money. And then when you get out and suddenly you're paying for everything, and then suddenly all those student loan payments start to come back, you really start to understand how much you spend and how much it takes to cover everything. And then I think this is where everyone kind of gets into that trap of working a job, to pay the bills. And, one of the big things I look at is if we could have went back and known more about expenses and stuff.
Another
in
course
college,
that would be good for them to teach us.
Absolutely. That's one of the big things I always say is, people should learn personal finance, hopefully at home, but also in school. So, one of the big things we're doing with like our kids is trying to teach them about money. We'll put a picture up on the show notes page at serialstartups.co/show22. And Elena saved like $150 so far. She's only 4.
Yeah.
So we're going to start working with her on like, how does she take some of that and save it? And then we'll also give her some opportunities to invest, because we want
or
her
when
to,
she wants
to learn
to buy
all of that.
things, explain, here's what happens when you want to buy something. It costs this much. And then that means you don't have as much to buy other things.
Yeah. And I think finally with this, the recommendation is always go to college. And it's not that college is bad, but it's just, looking and at least exposing people to other paths so they can choose, not just automatically assuming that you have to go to college.
Make sure it's what's for you. All right. So next in the lifeline here is after marriage. So we'll talk about some personal growth after marriage. And I think one of the biggest things that I came to terms with is that if you can marry your best friend, you are so, so lucky. It is one of the best things that we ever did. I mean, like Tom said earlier, friends used to pick on us in college. They literally called the soccer teams called us the married couple, because we were together all the time. We were best friends. We just hit it off great, and we had always told everyone, hey, we're going to get married after college. And some people took us seriously, some didn't. So I guess not a whole lot changed for us personally when we finally did get married, because we kind of already had lived like a married couple for a while.
Yeah, I would say probably the one thing is, I think our outlook started to change a little bit. So when we were in college, we didn't really think too much about the future. We still kind of thought about ourselves. I mean, obviously we were together, but I think as you get married and as you start to look towards the future, you start to make decisions based on that. So this is when you get into like, where are we going to live? Are we going to buy a house or are we going to rent? What type of jobs are we going to have? When are we going to have kids? So I think the thought process starts to change, and that's when I think a lot of maturity starts to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely matured.
I think we matured quicker, to be honest, than a lot of people.
Well, it's because we lived as married couples in college.
I was going to say, yeah, exactly.
All right. So after business, one of my biggest personal growth points was realizing that good friends are few and far between. Hold on to the ones that are there for you no matter what you're doing, when your life changes. Being an entrepreneur obviously changes your life, and we found that not a lot of people understand that sometimes. So it's rough when you lose people that you thought were friends, but really hold on to those good ones and cherish them.
Yeah, I mean, we always tell people, when you're going to start a business, one of the best things you can do is go and find someone that's already doing the business that you want to do and get close to them and learn from them. One, you're going to learn much more and be better at business quicker. But two, you're going to have that support, because when you first try to start a business, you may have some people that support you, but you're going to have a lot of people that tear you down. And I think that was a good thing for us was, one, I, to be honest, didn't care if people tore us down. But two, to your point, as you go through and you get older and you get married and you have kids and you start a business, you're going to really narrow down like who your circle is. And I think the key thing is the people that are in that circle are really going to be your true friends. And there might be some people that end up not fitting into that circle because you're changing in a certain way and they're changing in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the drifters. We learned to let the drifters drift off, and we'll just hold on to those good ones.
Yeah, and I think, one of my big things after we started a business was probably finding the balance between business and life. So, like, I'm very motivated because I know what I want our lives to look like, and I had set that goal of retiring by 35. So I was very motivated to get there, but at the same time, you can't be 100% business and miss out on the life experiences. So, I mean, I think you've helped me a lot with that, but it's always a struggle with entrepreneurs with you want to achieve that success, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you're not missing out on life in the meantime.
All right, so let's talk about after kids.
All right, so for me, I think having kids makes you want to be the best version of yourself. So when it's just you only think about yourself. When you get married, you think about yourself and someone else. But when you have kids, now you have these little
tiny beings.
That's perfect. That start out and they know nothing, and then you're shaping and molding them, and you start to realize, in some cases not so good, that they're really watching everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes you kind of come back and say, what do I want to display to them, and what do I want them to learn and be as they grow? So I think you just focus a lot more on how do you make sure that you're really projecting the image you want them to see.
Yeah, and for me, I've learned that, unfortunately, due to sleep deprivation and a definite cap on patience, that isn't always what happens, being the best version of yourself. But your kids will love you anyways, no matter how many times you screw up at this whole parenting thing. So that's been my personal growth after kids.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, too, it's in business, and it's also being a parent. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. And I think that's one of the parallels between being a business and, being a parent. You're not going to know all the answers. You're just going to have to do something, and you're going to fail, and you're going to learn, and you're going to grow. So I think that's such an important thing. Your kids are going to remember the good things. If you make mistakes along the way, which you will, it's not a huge deal.
No.
And then I think probably just the other thing from here is every time one of these major milestones come, you start to shift your perspective. And I think when you have kids, you really start to just look forward and kind of say, well, are the things that I'm doing now working towards the life that I want to give them? And then really like, they're going to be our legacy. So what are we doing now and how are we kind of setting up that legacy so that when we look back, we're happy with what we did and what decisions we made?
Yeah, your outlook changes from the one you had at marriage, for sure. All right, so talking about marriage, let's skip over to our relationship growth after college.
So I played a lot less Final Fantasy. So I think one of the things is in college, we lived separately. I mean, we were together quite a bit. But after college, we moved in together. And as anyone that's moved in with a best friend or with a significant other knows, there can be challenges with living together. So it's definitely exciting. But I mean, you got to start to shift and adjust and figure out, how do we work together? What are some of your pet peeves? How do we kind of work through that? And then what do we do when situations get tough? And how do we manage through that?
Yeah, Ariana had to learn to curb her OCD tendencies again.
Yeah,
living with someone.
Yep. Why, you don't like it when you're in the shower and I turn the water on?
No, he still does that to this day. By the way,
I'm horrible.
Yeah, he pretty much still lets me load the dishwasher too, because that's one I just can't do it.
Yeah, there's certain things I just stay away from.
He knows. So after marriage, I would say our biggest growth was that we learned making big life decisions together is pretty tough, as most people will tell you. And especially so when it comes to the finances. We realized after multiple, arguments or disagreements or just issues that we had with our finances that we needed to communicate better and be on the same page with what we kind of wanted in our marriage.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things here is, we got into a lot of debt very quickly. So we actually have another podcast where we went into kind of how we got into that debt. We did a whole timeline and then how we got out of it. But I mean, we paid off over $100,000 worth of debt. And if you want to listen more to that, you can go to serialstartups.co/show3. But I think it's so easy to get into that debt, especially when we talked before. If you don't have a financial background or anyone to kind of guide you, I mean, one thing after another, and then you're in this hole. And then it makes all of those decisions even more difficult because you're trying to dig out of that hole at the same time. So related to that and getting into debt, I think it's so important to talk about your finances. How are you going to manage them? Are you going to do it together or separately? Who's going to be responsible for what? And regardless of which approach you take, whenever you're going to make a big decision, you've got to talk about it. Yeah, so if you listen to the show, you've heard us talk about this a couple times, but when I spent $7,500 on a credit card for real estate training and didn't tell Ariana. So we'll link to a blog post about that. But, I mean, the reality is, even if you're handling your own money, you're now a couple, you're now together, your decisions impact the other person's. You really got to talk about those things beforehand. And then I think probably the final thing is you're going to make mistakes. And I mean, we say this time and time again, but it's so true. You're going to make financial mistakes. You're going to make other mistakes. Part of being in a relationship is you got to work through it. I mean, so many people get divorced nowadays and the rate's so high. And I think if you figure out how to work through your failures and your challenges together, you have such a higher rate of being successful, being happy, and really being able to enjoy your life. So we have a show that actually talks about, as an entrepreneur, how do you fail in a smart way? And you can check that out at serialstartups.co/show6. But what I like about this is when you get into business, you can make a lot of mistakes and they can cost you a lot of money. And our strategy with this lets you kind of practice without risking the finances, which I know Ariana really enjoys.
Not my favorite board game. So after business, I think one of my biggest personal growth points was learning that business isn't personal. Because we work together, it is really difficult as a couple not to take those work disagreements as personal disagreements and to, let that kind of blend over into your marriage. So I think that was really another lesson in communication for us was, okay, we need to make sure that we're not messing with our relationship by having these work disagreements and figure out how we can work together in a way that's business and then, go ahead and turn off the business and have our relationship separately. So we do have a show talking about that as well. If you head up to serialstartups.co/show 8, we talk about how to stay organized and communicate in your business.
Yeah, and I think a key thing with that is, you've got to kind of figure out, and this works even for people that aren't working together, because if one spouse is going to be the entrepreneur and the other one's going to work a job, you still have to manage money together, figure out how you're going to invest in the business, and figure out how much time, you're going to spend.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the big things that's really helped us is, defining working agreements. So who's going to play what role? What time are you going to commit to that? How much money are you going to commit to it? And then working together and communicating so that we figure out how we work together, either as business partners or as an entrepreneur and a full-time employee, because those lives look very different.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have a show on this one too. So serialstartups.co/show 5, we really talk about how do you overcome some of those challenges of working with your spouse.
Yeah. And then after kids, big one here, big life realization. A good relationship really takes time and energy. People are not lying when they tell you that. Can't stress communication enough here. After kids, they become your top priority. And it is so easy to let your relationship with your spouse kind of fall off to the wayside.
I think you should say that again.
What?
It's so easy to let your relationship fall to the wayside.
You just said it for me.
Yeah.
You really have to work to make it all fit in with everything else, because if you're unhappy in one area of your life, it's going to leak into all the others. So if you don't have a good relationship with your spouse, you're going to start to mess with your relationship with your kids. You're going to start to mess with your own relationship with yourself and just be unhappy everywhere. So that is my biggest thing I can't stress enough is it takes the time and energy, and you have to communicate.
Well, and I think one of the things there that it took us a while to figure out was we got to kind of figure out what we both want our lives to look like, because if we're not intentional with that, our time gets sucked up with kids and with everything else. And next thing you know, it's 5 years later, and maybe we're not happy because we weren't able to do some of the stuff we want.
Yeah.
So we actually have a show out there, serialstartups.co/show 4, that really talks about how to do goal planning, not only in your business, but also in your life. And, one of the biggest realizations that I had was I thought our lives were going to end up a certain way. You thought they were going to end up a different way. I was thinking more, we're going to be entrepreneurs. We're going to work hard for a couple of years, and then we'll be able to kind of do what we want. You were initially thinking more of the traditional path. We have jobs, we have kids, and it wasn't until we really started talking about those combined goals and then making sure that what we did got us there that I think we started to work past a lot of the relationship things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think also, too, the big saver for us is we've kind of developed this system over time for how we manage it all. We've talked in the past about Google Calendar and how we have like 8 calendars, one for each business, one for kids.
It's more than 8.
It is more than 8. I think we ran out of colors.
Yeah, we did.
But you're gonna have a lot of demands on your time. So whether it's your kids, your business, your time together with your spouse, you're really gonna have all these demands. So by sitting down and actually figuring out where do you want to spend your time and being explicit with it, it's really gonna help you get everything done. And the things you don't get done are hopefully the things that you've lowered priority and said, these aren't the things that I'm gonna do.
Put them for tomorrow. All right, so I think we are towards the end of the show. I'll let Tom go ahead and do our tip of the week.
All right, so we've said this is a journey, and the biggest thing that I can tell anyone that's going to embark on this journey is just be prepared for a tough road that you're going to have ahead. One of my pet peeves in this entrepreneurial space, especially when you see it online, is people always glamorize, oh, you can be your own boss. You can wear sweatpants every day.
Hey.
Ariana.
Hey.
Oh, you can work on the beach. You can do whatever you want.
You can wear sweatpants every day.
And the reality is some people can do that. Most people don't. They're showing you a lifestyle that they don't actually live. It's tough to be an entrepreneur. It is trying. You're going to get depressed. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to doubt yourself. Other people are going to doubt you. But with all that said, it is so worth it if you can persevere and really get through it. Because as an employee, you can create a certain life, but you're always going to be constrained to what company you're working for, when they tell you have to work, and how much money they think you're worth. As an entrepreneur, you can really create the life you want with the options you want. So, I mean, the big reason that we created this podcast was obviously to help you guys build your businesses. But more importantly, it's not just about building the business. It's about how do you build businesses to build the life you want. And, you know, a lot of people talk about this lifestyle design and all this other stuff. But like I said, it's going to be hard. And don't think because you're facing a challenge that you're the only one. Every entrepreneur goes through these tough times. All right, so with that, we'll wrap up the show. You can find all the links and everything we talked about here at serialstartups.co/show22. And don't forget that we are finishing out the month of January, which is our business planning month. We talked a lot about business planning this month. So if you are looking to take your first step in that entrepreneurial journey, make sure you check out some of the content. And we actually have a free business planning template that you can download too. So that'll be linked up in the show notes.
For February, we're going to talk about getting all of your tasks and projects done. So our next episode, the first episode in February, is going to be all around the common challenges and solutions to getting your work done.
Yeah, this is going to be a big one. I mean, people come to us all the time and say, how do I get it done? How do I get organized? So we're going to spend the entire month of February really helping you guys with the best tips and strategies that we've figured out over the years.
Yep. So that's all for today. We will talk to you next week.
All right. Crush it, guys.
Bye. Like our podcast? We'd love for you to leave us a review on iTunes. Know someone who's thinking about starting their own business? Please share this with them so we can help them on their entrepreneurial path. Entrepreneur Jim Rohn once said, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, then you need to surround yourself with other successful entrepreneurs, but you may not know how or have other entrepreneurs in your area. That is why we created the Serial Startups Community, which is a free private Facebook group for entrepreneurs to gather, ask questions, share their experiences, and grow one or more successful businesses. Head on over to sscommunity.co now to request your free access.
Da-da-da-da. So I looked for intro music or transition music for like an hour, and then I'm like, no, we'll just break and then we'll come back.
Yeah.
So at some point we'll get some transition music. What?
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Good? Okay.
Oh, you can talk, you know.
Oh, I know. I forget.
I can edit things out.
I didn't want you to have to
We don't have to do sign language here.